has consistently supported Mimamsa through 8 years of ups and downs and has played a crucial role in guiding Mimamsa team. His encouragement and insight has been invaluable to us. Sir, I request you to kindly address the audience.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and very warm welcome to ISER Pune. Congratulations and welcome especially to the 4 teams from IISc Bangalore, IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, and our sister ISER Bhopal. Please join me in giving them a round of applause, because making it to the top 4 from a field of about 1,500 or so teams from around the nation is a feat in itself, and you deserving of the congratulations again. As Mangalam pointed out, this is the 18th edition of Mimamsa. It's had an unbroken run from the initial 2009 event, which was a very small event which only was open to colleges in and around Pune. And now it has grown into this prestigious national event. Thanks in no small measure to Praj Industries, because of the 18 Mimamsa events so far, this is the 7th Praj ISER Mimamsa, because Praj became sponsors of this event in 2020 and has ever since been not just sponsors but very benevolent supporters of the event. And I thank my friends Shashi, Pani, Suyash, and all the others from Praj who have taken their time and made it over here. In the initial years, we were very lucky to have Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, the chairman founder of Praj over here, and he personally intervened many a time to shape the scope of this event. And from a competition that only spanned a few colleges in Pune, it's grown into a national event, and that is entirely due to the help from Praj Industries. So thank you very much and welcome to you all. The last thing I want to say is that this event is unique because the way at least I see it is that it is a celebration of science. It helps. It's unlike any other science event. I'm trying to consciously avoid using the word competition, because strictly speaking, science is not about competing. But unfortunately, that's the way we have to package it in order to make it attractive. But it's a celebration because over the course of these next 3 days, the teams are going to engage in trying to solve problems, answer questions, which will require critical thinking. It will require debating and trying to build on the work of our people who already came before you and did something, which is the spirit of Mimamsa, as the word in Sanskrit means. So I'm going to sign off now, wishing all the best to the teams. I hope you enjoy this event as much as the organizing team has had putting it all together. So welcome again and good luck.
Thank you, Professor. I would now like to invite Professor Devapriya Chattopadhyay, Associate Dean of International Relations and Outreach, ISER Pune, to extend a warm welcome to everyone present here today.
Thank you. Again, welcome to ISER Pune campus. a warm welcome to our industry partners and the teams who are well deserving to this event. My role as an Associate Dean for Outreach is primarily to look after all kinds of outreach activities of ICER Pune. And although there are structured events as part of outreach activities of ICER Pune, which are directly funded by ICER Pune, I believe that many of the events like Mimamsa has a far better outreach than some of the newer structured programs. And that's why we would like it to proliferate and prosper in future. One more point, that it's a fantastic idea to have such great industry partners to contribute to the idea of science and expanding it to various partners who are not from ICER Pune, but participating in these events. And I'm really glad that our industry partners are here, thanks to Praj Industries. Finally, I would also like to share an anecdote which kind of says what is the reach of Mimamsa. It was about 2012. I was a relatively young faculty member in another ICER, and two students came to my office quite frustrated, saying, "You guys don't do anything." I said, "Well, criticism taken, but what is the point right now?" And their point was, "We are organizing Inauguration, another science, program, event. But ICER Pune, everybody gets involved so vigorously. And here, barely any." So that was the first time I heard about Mimamsa before visiting ICER Pune, before knowing different departments. In fact, it was before my own department, the Earth and Climate Science Department, was established in ICER Pune. So your event can actually reach out to a really larger extent and make people curious about what is this event about. And this curiosity is the primary hook to explore. And I think all of us agree that individually, all of us kind of work in similar hooks and finally explore and finally find our path, sometimes directly to scientific profession, but sometimes in other practices, that same discovery or the passion of discovery continues. So wish you all the best, that this journey continues, and this is only a first step to that long discovery. Thank you again, and welcome to ICER Pune.
Thank you, Mom. I request Professor Madhusudan to come on stage to felicitate Professor Jagat Khatri. The greatest scientists are artists as well. A quote by one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, Albert Einstein. Therefore, let us now enjoy the cultural performances by the students of ICER Pune, giving us a glimpse into the artistic side of our community. First, we have a fusion of Western and Carnatic, performed by Anaka on the violin and Ninad on the keyboard. invite Itishri to the stage for an enthralling Odissi dance. She will be performing the Varsha Pallavi, a pure dance item in Odissi that translates to monsoon blossoming.
सदा मनोज्ञं स्वनदुत्सवोत्सुकं विकीर्णविस्तीर्णकलापशोभितं ससम्भ्रमालिङ्गन चुम्बनाकुलं ससम्भ्रमालिङ्गन चुम्बनाकुलं प्रवृत्तनृत्यं कुलमध्यबर्हिणाम्
That was really captivating. Let's appreciate her performance with another round of applause. A national level science competition like Mimamsa requires enormous support, and our event would not have been possible without the gracious support of our sponsors, Praj Industries, a global leader in sustainable biofuel production, supply, and development. Praj Industries share the same passion for science and innovation that we do. We are honored to have with us Dr. Shashi Shankar Padmanabhan, Senior Principal Scientist at the R&D Center of Praj Matrix. Dr. Padmanabhan has 35 international research papers and 4 patents to his name. It is a privilege to have him here with us today, and we look forward to hearing his insights. Sir, I now request you to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, Mangalam, for that kind introduction. And am I audible? Yeah. Good evening and warm, very welcome to all. And first of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Professor Madhusudan, and also he set the context very well. Dear students, of course, dear bright minds here, my Prajites and co-workers, and above all, the panelists who made it to the, or rather the brilliant minds who made it to the finals. And I'm sure without you, or without your passion, without your brilliance, this stage cannot be exciting. So I'm thankful and privileged to, and it's an honor to be here just to address the keynote. Before that, I also would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to give this, or rather a keynote. I just wanted to make it brief. Before I start, I also would like to thank our founder chairman, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary. Professor Madhusudan mentioned about his passion towards science. Actually, what Praj sets, it's a good platform. It's a good ecosystem where not just academia, work within academia, or the brilliant minds gets indulge in a kind of competition and passion, rather taking the science forward. But it also, the industry also needs what comes out of the the brilliant minds or the academic minds, so that the industrial science and also the academic science can merge together. So that is the ecosystem our founder chairman, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, wanted to highlight. So I will not dwell much into the too much of the discussions. I just wanted to make it much more. I would like to highlight 3 or 4 points which are very pertinent to the competition that is going to happen in the next few days. As Professor Madhusudan highly pointed out, that it is rather, we don't want to call it as a competition, but rather as scientific endeavor, or taking the science, or rather the science and the ideas to the next level. So we create a brilliant mindset who will not only take the nation forward, but also make advances in terms of industrialization as well. So 3 or 4 pertinent points, I think that will provide not only set the context, but also create a more scientific temper. At the same time, I also hope that this will also ignite and also challenge the current scientific temper which you have. I would, in my opinion, I would see this more like solving the grand puzzle, rather than winning the trophies and getting the award, and then okay, I got the prize money, I got the award, let's move on. But you should see this more as a platform where there is a grand puzzle, and where you will be providing your deeper insights and the knowledge, and then build that puzzle. And once that puzzle happens, and then once that is solved, you feel that wow moment. I think that's what I feel this is more about. And of course, you win applause and of course the prize. The first point which I want to touch mostly is about the essence of interdisciplinary. So before I start, how many of you are aware of World Economic Forum? I'm sure they have highlighted a lot of risk, 50 risk or more than that. There are risk factors related to society. There are risk factors related to scientific and also technology aspects. Can you name some of them which are very relevant in Indian context as well as in the global context? Any one of you can raise your hands and say, which is of course relevant to what we work on, which I'll share in my note. Any idea? Just give me one keyword, that should be good enough. Okay, I'll name the city, probably you can tell Delhi. Anything comes to mind? Yeah, right. Okay, that's one of the grand risks that this world faces now, and so I will highlight 4 or 5 which we see in everyday life. One is about the energy security and the transportation. So for which we are still looking at the fuel from outside of our world, so outside of India, and that poses a risk of geopolitics. The other one is of course climate change, which we see every day. I mean, like we don't know whether we see a summer tomorrow or a winter or snow or hailstorm. So these kind of things keeps changing. The other, of course, is pollution. And the third or fourth important point which I see is we are making a large strides, of course, is health. And one of the beautiful thing about the nature is does not see it as a problem of chemistry or problem of physics or problem of earth science or problem of chemical engineering or problem of mechanical engineering. It is a nature's problem. It doesn't see it as a single unit or as a single entity. So it is kind of interdisciplinary. So that is where I hope. So my key point is here: create the habit of interdisciplinary approach. So don't look just. Of course, it is good to have a. Let's say I become strong in one of the skill set or a couple of skill sets. So you are strong in maths, you are strong in physics. Foundations, I'm talking about advanced one. Yes, you become strong in a couple of areas, but you should, have that mindset of interdisciplinary. And that's what we do at Praj. The ethos of Praj is, some of you will visit Praj Matrix facility, and then you will have a Praj, the slides of Praj in the end of during the valedictory ceremony. So it's, the ethos of Praj is like completely interdisciplinary. We have civil engineers, we have chemical engineers, and then we have molecular biology, biotechnology, and of course chemical catalysis. I come from chemistry background. So we all collaborate together. We look at it from an interdisciplinary point of view and addressing the grand challenges of energy crisis, rather I would say energy transition. So we are looking at green and biotechnological efforts with the chemical engineering and mechanical engineering aspect towards transition to alternate energy. So we are not just looking at it from the science fiction point of view, but how do you take the scientific ideas more into the industrial arena? That's what we do. So we pride ourselves in being a big supporter for the energy transition in the Indian context as well as in the global context. The other, of course, what we are looking at is we combine technologies which are related to biology, be it through fermentation pathways or enzymatic pathways. And we look into the world where we see greener skies, where we look at things which are above the earth. If you look at the last 2 centuries or so, the civilization has been built on what has been under the ground. So we've been drilling oil, we've been looking at what are the materials below the earth, how we can utilize the resource, because resource utilization and crunch is another thing. And so we are looking at what is above the ground, where it just replenishes every year. If you look at the trees, if you look at the agri-based residues, it's not like just a waste which is going to lie there. You can cultivate that plant again. It has life of 3 to 4 years. You can recultivate again, so it can be purposefully used not only for food but also for fuels and materials. And that is what we are looking at. So that is what I mean by looking at things in an interdisciplinary way. And the second important point, which is pertinent to your skill set which will come, it's about cultivating the spirit of question or quest. I mean, we heard about Mangalam speaking about the quest or scientific quest. So the reason is because we are trained in such a way like, that we can answer. I'm sure most of you will answer, without, in a fraction of a second, what is there in the classic textbook questions. So we will answer them immediately. So I am not questioning or challenging that part. what are the things, from the information side or from the knowledge perspective, we are all well equipped. But the thing is that how do you think or how do you process your thinking is what I'm going to challenge you. So that is the point I want to highlight. Cultivate by meaning like cultivating the spirit of questioning. Like for example, let's say if you read a journal or if you read articles, many of them see that as a kind of information. Okay, I got information, I got a, let's say, experimental product or just like ideas where I can work on. But have you ever thought these were people who have published this had a lot of questions regarding the mysteries of the nature, regarding how the things have been working. So it is formed because of, these are libraries of course, but this is formed because of many inquiry or questioning mindset. And that has culminated in the form of books or libraries or journals, etc. So what I would urge you is look into cultivate the spirit of questioning. So as you participate in this program in the next 4 days, just also focus on how do you think. So questioning is one of the important aspects, I think, which we can cultivate, and this is one of the forum where you will have more of that in your later stages of your career as well. So actually, if you look at it, I was just reading about, listening to some commentary probably in Facebook or some social media about how Israel became, I'm just quoting, there are, of course, it's true for other countries as well, how Israel has been able to produce. Why I'm relating Israel is because I want to take example from Asia, have been able to produce many Nobel laureates. It's one of the answer which many of the local journals were, or rather leaders were saying, is that they inculcate the spirit of questioning in the classroom itself or in the childhood days itself. So it's not that they start asking why is the sky blue. That is how the question starts with. How the nature works. How plants absorb sunlight and turn it into food. And of course, the child keeps answering or child keeps providing the answers, but actually they entice them with more question. So that the fundamental point which I want to stress is the spirit of questioning, they inculcate at the very early age. So what does it do? You can say, yeah, I question every day, but what is important is you can question many things. And as you start questioning, what are the pertinent questions that you will come to know, as you start more questioning. So as you develop the questioning habit. So the essence of the competition is not just, providing straight away the answer, but also the, cultivating the spirit of, question or quest, I would say. Let's say, again, taking the example of development of civilization. We all know about the steam engines that were developed in 1700s or before that. But then later on in the last century, we have seen the tremendous growth of oil exploration across, predominantly in Middle East and other places. Yes, there were tremendous discovery, which we dug deeper below the earth, and we could be, we were able to, of course, run the civilization for a century. But of course, it has also posed a lot of other problems, which we started questioning in the recent years. Like, what is that impact of using the fossil fuel on particularly on the greenhouse emission side, and of course the other, difficulties or challenges that you have. So once you start questioning on that front, now you're going back to look at the other alternatives. That is what we at Praj Industries look. So we are looking at, resources other than fossil fuels for the sustenance or the momentum of the civilization which we have built. So it's not that we are not going to go back to the olden civilization, but we want to keep the civilization moving, because civilization always leapfrog ahead. So for that, what could be the better resources? So we started questioning, and of course, our chairman founder was looking at the alternate fuels where it was not even talked about. So 40 years back itself, we were looking at how we can utilize the waste, how we can transform the energy sector. So actually, questioning some of the context will help you and put you forth in the, so it will help you to move forward. So I would say cultivate the spirit of questioning. Uh, the other thing is providing the spirit of creating the spirit by providing solutions through first principles and logic. What I meant is generally, we are very fast at giving solutions. Immediately whatever we have, quick fix solutions. It is good. I mean, it's no doubt it is going to help. But I would say, or rather we say, this is how the tradition has been working. Or you will refer to a textbook. For example, if I ask you a question, you will refer to a textbook. Or you look to dictionary for some words, which is good. I'm not saying which is, it's pretty good. But can we move beyond that layer? Can we move beyond that layer? Start using first principles or logic, which you have learned in your class textbooks or classic textbooks. Can I use that to provide a solution? For example, I'll give you an example. Instead of looking at the best fuel, what we looked at is we have a fuel called ethanol. So we looked at how do we make best use of the ethanol? Can we blend it with petrol? That was the first question. Or can we produce ethanol? How can we enhance the production of ethanol? So these are the questions. What are the components that make the fuel? What is fuel ethanol? So these are the questions that we looked at it, and then we started finding out, yes, we can provide solutions. We looked at how ethanol as a molecule, it could be a reapplication. If you look at through the first principle, you'll be looking at application of molecules in a different context. Let's say I can use ethanol as a diesel blend. I can use it as anti-knock agent. I can now go for blending up to E20. So the cars which you see today, which is up to E20, Pratt's technology is there involved in that. In a similar line, we are also looking at bioplastics. So we are embarking on 3 or 4 different varieties of plastics, which we are looking at whether it is degradable or not. Because one of the biggest menace is the plastic menace. If you just walk across the street, if you want to enjoy a seashore, you will see that it's flooded with plastic. Of course, it is needed in everyday life. You cannot do without that. But the question is, can we find out the way which we can make a degradable plastic? That's something which we are looking at. And we are not looking at saying, okay, I will discover the best plastic out there. But what we are looking at is, what are those bio-based plastic available? How can I use the first principles of, molecular biology or biotechnology or fermentation technology and make it much better? So to make the product much better and much degradable. So this is what I mean by providing solutions out of box, not just the classic textbooks, but looking at the outside in the real world sense, and then providing it using a logic. Of course, I'm not saying without logic. You can, of course, use the tools of AI, provided it makes, it falls into the your own first principles of that. So use first principles whenever possible. Even in your quiz, I'm sure you will be using not just what is there in memory or what you have learned, but it is like okay, this is from the principle of quantum chemistry, or this is from the Newton's law. So those are the principles which you look at it, and then you kind of deconstruct and come forth with the solution. So I hope this will help, because the second point is solutions, providing solutions through first principle and with good logic. The other part which I want to say is when we looked at earlier, the trees were used to make papers. But now what we are looking at is what other things that we can use when we are looking at agri-residues. Of course, we looked at making fuels. We looked at making gaseous fuels. We looked at making liquid fuel. And then there is other residue, which is like, generally you put it in the boiler or which goes as a waste, or even for paper. But we thought, why not we use it for sustainable road making? So we looked at the composition of entire lignocellulosic biomass. We looked at what is the oxygen component, phenolic component. So we looked at the thermodynamic properties of it. We looked at the polymeric properties of it. After that, we thought, okay, we can provide a solution which is long-lasting at the same time, which has a commercial impact as well. So we have been able to come up with another molecule called biobinder, biobitumen we call it. You use asphalt. which is basically the residue. You see it in the road, which is basically a residue from fossil fuel. We are looking at, can we replace or can we blend, in fact, bio-based resources. So we have come out with one of the molecules called, lignin-based one, so which we are able to make the road. Actually, you can see in YouTube some of the examples of that. So what I'm saying is, look at it from the perspective of, like providing solutions to first principle, looking at, how we make it better through kinetics or through thermodynamics, whatever the logic you have learned as in science. So I'm sure in the competition also that is what you will do, a deep thought, and I'm sure you will be engaging your first principles when you are answering questions and, taking on the challenges from there. And the third most important point which I want to highlight here is scientific exploration, and the other one is intellectual fearlessness. What I mean by exploration is, of course, we all have a very good knowledge, or we know how to get knowledge. We can go to textbook, we can rely on Google, or we can rely on other platforms. But what is of use if it is not converted into a, new product or new insights? So like, for example, we know that CO2, plays a crucial role in photosynthesis. But to understand that, we have to go one layer. So the scientific exploration is what gives you what are the molecules that are responsible for the capture of sunlight, what are the molecules that trigger the mechanism, how is the food stored, how is the food generated, and how it is dissipated. So there are layers of biology, layers of chemistry, and principles there. So the exploration is like going there and finding it out. It's not like, I will put it this way, like a technician to a pioneer. So we are all, technically knowledge. We have a technical knowledge, let's say, but we need to pioneer that. For that, we need to, do a scientific exploration, scientific technological exploration. So in that regard, if you look at our chairman founder, he was an ex-IIT himself, and when you looked at it, he was looking at how do I make use of the waste residues, which was, of course, sugar waste residues in 40 years before that, 1980s. It was like, it was kind of wasted up there. Molasses, which is, byproduct of sugar. He thought, why not utilize that sugar systems and make a molecule, which was started as a small level, now it has grown into a big business, and of course been able to now sponsor this industry academia event. So it's like, it's not enough to have a knowledge only, but you need to, learn that scientific, or you have to walk through that scientific exploration and move from, technical expertise to a pioneering, product and solutions. Of course, this involves process, no doubt. It's not going to happen overnight, but it involves a process, because in the exam, what you look at is you focus on how much marks I'm going to get, or what are the textbooks that I'm going to refer, or what will be comparative to other students, what career it will make, or so these are the things which you look when you are looking at from the focus of exam. But if you look at it from the focus of scientific discovery, you look at through the process, and you look at through questioning and reasoning, and of course through that you will be able to provide solutions which will lead to next set of questions, of course, and next set of solutions as well. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to also question the authority, because you are not questioning the authority, you are questioning the assumptions or the validity of the first principles. So do not fear, because if you want to explore or go from technical to pioneer, you need to question that, and you need to challenge that, and then further go ahead. I would say adopt exploratory approach, and with that, I just would like to, conclude by saying few things. One is like, you are not just here to win the trophy of prize money, but you want to cherish the wow moment in winning the thing, but as a collaborative effort with the team, and also engaging in a deep level, scientific discussions, and of course with the scientific exploratory mind. I'm sure you will use the knowledge and the principle which you have gained. So when you finish this part, and when you win or when you lose, doesn't matter. you start a journey, and I wish you all the best and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful words. I ask Professor Madhusudan to felicitate Dr. Padmanabhan. We would now like Professor Madhusudan to felicitate all the other dignitaries from Praj Industries present here. And now, the time is here to introduce our 4 finalist teams for Mimamsa Mains. They have proven themselves against the competition from across the nation in the prelims round, and over the next 3 days, they will challenge each other, showing their intellect, sound logic, and critical thinking during Mimamsa. I call upon the general coordinators to announce the finalists for the 18th edition of Mimamsa Mains.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharanya Rai, one of the general coordinators for Mimamsa 2026. It is a privilege to introduce the finalist teams from Mimamsa Mains. I request you to come up on stage as I call out your names. From the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Aryan Mishra, Divyansh Arora, Mohit Kamalakannan, and Soham Acharya. From the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Bhopal, Kavya Mehta, Shivang Bharadwaj, Shivani Noraje, and Vedant Bansal. From the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, Ayush Kothari, Pratham Jain, Shubhradeep Paul, and Siddhant Agrawal. From the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, Anvesh Shubham Pradhan, Akshat Chaplur, Ayush Gangal, and Mitra Srinivasan. Let's give all of them a huge round of applause. We wish you the very best for the competition ahead. And with that, I declare Mimamsa Mains 2026 officially open.
That concludes the inauguration of Mimamsa Mains 2026. We look forward to the exciting discussions, ideas, and scientific exploration coming up in the next 3 days. Thank you all for being here, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.